This video is sponsored by Skillshare, an online learning community for creative and curious people. Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. I hope you're all doing really well today. So today we are going to be working with a vintage pattern, and this was such a fun project to work on. Here is the pattern that I'm going to be using today. How adorable is this? I think this is actually the first vintage pattern that I ever purchased, and I love it so much. It's this little tank top and then button front skirt and shorts set, and I just think it is the cutest, most summery thing. So this is what I'm going to be making today. Now, because I am missing a couple of pieces for the shorts pattern, I'm going to be swapping in this little 1950s vintage pattern. This is Simplicity number 4285, and then this one is Advance number 2824. So if I can find any other copies of these, I will link to them down below, but let me show you how the project turned out. So the fabric that I'm using today is another linen from Merely Susan. If you watched my last video where I made this green dress, you will know all about that, but she has a beautiful Etsy shop with some amazing linen fabrics. So today I'm using this cream colored one with blue flowers. So here's the little top. You can see I added ruffles to the straps, and we'll go over that in the video. Then here are the shorts. I think they are so perfect. I love the high waist and I love the length as well. I just think they're so cute and comfortable. And then here is the button front skirt, and how fun are these big patch pockets. I think this is so cute, and I love how much fabric is in this skirt. It's really nice and full. So those are all of the pieces I'm going to be making in today's video, and I'm going to go ahead and jump in and get started. So here is a bit of a closer look at this pattern I will be working with today. This is a vintage 1960s pattern, and I think I got this one on eBay. And since I am missing a few of the pieces for the shorts, I'll be using this 1950s pattern for the shorts. It's very similar. The fabric I'll be working with today is this 100% linen from Merely Susan on Etsy. It's got this beautiful floral pattern, and I have 3 yards of my fabric. I'm also going to be lining some of these pieces today, and for my lining fabric, I'm using an old bed sheet that I've recycled to use for lining. So I'm going to start by cutting out all of my pattern pieces, and I will go over each one individually whenever I start on each part of the project. This skirt piece was really wide, so I decided just to omit a little bit of the width, and it didn't affect the overall look at all. The only piece I'm cutting out that is not a pattern piece is a ruffle to add to the straps, and so for this piece I'm just making sure I have a strip of fabric that is double the length of the strap. I'm cutting out all of my lining and interlining pieces, and then I'm ready to get started with the shorts. Here's a quick look at all of the pieces that make up these shorts. So I have the front and back pieces, 2 of each of these, and also an interlining for these. I have the waistband and then the pocket pieces. I decided to interline these shorts because the fabric is a little bit sheer and I didn't want to worry about them being see-through, but I also didn't want them to have any kind of bulky lining. So I'll be treating the lining and the outer fabric as the same layer throughout this whole sewing process. So I'm going to start by assembling the front and back pieces of the shorts by pinning these together with the right sides of the fabric together along the center seam. So I'm working with 4 layers of fabric in total here, but treating it as if it's just 2 pieces of fabric. And this will be a lot easier to work with once I've sewn this first seam. I'm going to do the same thing on the front pieces, and then I'll stitch these seams with a 5/8 of an inch seam allowance and use the serger to finish the edge. I'm using the serger to finish these seams, and I'm also going to go ahead and finish the side edges of these front and back pieces. This will help the pieces to hold together a little bit better since I'm working with an interlining. Once those seams are sewn, I'm going to quickly press the seam to one side, and then I'm ready to work on the pleats in the front of the shorts and the darts in the back of the shorts. These shorts have 4 darts in the back, which I think really helps with the fit since they are so high-waisted. So all I'm doing here is transferring the markings for the darts and then pinning the darts together. Then I'll take these to the sewing machine and sew them down with a straight stitch. Now the front of the shorts have 2 little soft pleats instead of darts, so all I'm doing is marking those pleats and pinning them together, and then I'll just baste these down at the sewing machine. With the front and back of the shorts assembled, it's time to move on to the pockets next. And as I was reading through the pattern guide for this pattern, I realized that I was missing a piece that was the pocket facing. So I just cut a little strip of fabric that would fit to the side of the pocket where it has that seam allowance marked. And I'm just going to sew this to the pocket with the right sides together. Then I'll repeat this step for all the remaining pocket pieces. I'm using the serger to finish the seam as well as all the raw edges on the outside of the pocket. Next, I'm going to run a row of top stitching along the outside of that pocket facing just to give it a really nice neat look, and then I'm ready to attach my pockets to my shorts. Now I'm starting with just the right side of the shorts because the left side seam will contain a zipper, so that will go a little bit differently, but I'm pinning the pocket pieces to the shorts with the right sides together and then just sewing these down. And while I'm at the sewing machine, I'm going to go ahead and understitch these pockets so that they stay turned towards the inside. So here is what the pocket looks like now that it's sewn onto the shorts, and now I can attach the front and back together. So I'm going to place these pieces together with the right sides together and pin all the way down the side seam and all the way around the outer edge of the pocket. Then I'll sew this down with a 5/8 of an inch seam allowance, but I don't have to use the serger because I've already finished these edges previously. I'm making sure to sew all the way around the pocket so that that pocket shape remains intact. And here's what the finished pocket looks like. The top edge is still open because that will be contained in the waistband, but it's looking really nice and neat. So with the right side pocket done, I'm going to go ahead and move on to the inseam. So I'm folding my shorts with the right sides together, and then I'm going to match up those center seams. I'm pinning the entire inseam together from the bottom of each leg opening up to the center seam, and then I will sew this down with a 5/8 of an inch seam allowance and use my serger to finish the edge. So now moving on to the left side pocket, this time I'm just going to pin the pocket to the front of the shorts, and then I'll pin the back of the pocket to the front of the pocket. Then I'm going to sew the pocket to the front of the shorts and then also go ahead and sew up the pocket bag. So this technique leaves us with that small strip of fabric still remaining, and this is what we're going to attach the zipper to. So I'm opening out my invisible zipper, and then I'm going to place this with the zipper tape against this small strip of fabric that was the pocket facing. Then I'll pin this in place and sew it down with a straight stitch as close to those zipper teeth as possible. Now I'll pin the other side of the zipper to the back of the shorts, and this will close up to close the side of the shorts and also make the pocket work. So here's how it looks with the zipper sewn in place, and you can see we still have a functioning side pocket, but also a side zipper. So now I just need to sew up this side seam, so I'm going to turn the shorts inside out and match up the side seam with the right sides together and sew this down with a straight stitch. You may notice my zipper is really long here. I'm going to come back and shorten that later, but it was just what I had on hand. Now I'll stitch the side seam starting at the bottom of the zipper and going all the way to the hem of the shorts. Next, we're going to attach the waistband. So I have my waistband piece here, and I'm going to place the waistband with the right side of the waistband facing the wrong side of the shorts. I'm matching up the center of the waistband to the side seam of the shorts, and I'm going to pin this in place along the top edge. Now I'm going to sew the waistband in place with a 5/8 of an inch seam allowance all along the top edge of the shorts. Now you might notice this waistband extends on either side. That's so that it can overlap to button on the waistband later. With the waistband sewn in place, I'm just going to press this nice and flat really quickly, and then I'm going to turn under that raw edge as if I'm hemming the waistband. Then I'll fold the waistband towards the outside of the shorts so that everything is encased inside the waistband, and then I can go ahead and top stitch this down. I'm making sure that all of the raw edges are encased on these little extended ends of the waistband, and I also decided to point off one of them just because I thought it would look cute and it looked similar to the pattern illustration. My waistband piece was a little bit ripped, so I didn't know if that was something I might have been missing. So now I'm just going to take this over to the sewing machine and top stitch all the way around the perimeter of the waistband. I'm going to quickly mark my buttonholes for the waistband. There's an exterior button and an interior button, so I'm just going to mark those in accordance with the pattern. I'm sewing my buttonholes in place, and I think with this project I finally figured out how to make some really neat buttonholes on my Kenmore, so I'll show you a close-up later in the video. I was pretty pleased with them, and then I'm going to move on to finishing off the edge at the hem of the shorts. I tried the shorts on and decided I just wanted a narrow hem, so I'm just going to use my serger to finish the edge of the leg openings, and then I'll turn under the serging about 1/2 of an inch and sew that down with a straight stitch. Then the last step to making these shorts was to sew on the buttons, and then I was ready to move on to making the skirt. Now, before I move on to making the skirt, I'm so excited to tell you guys about the sponsor of today's video, Skillshare. Skillshare has been such a helpful tool to me over the past few years as I've been learning more about pattern making and design, so I'm really excited to be partnering with them for today's video. Skillshare is an online learning community with thousands of inspiring classes for creators, and if you like my videos, I think you will love Skillshare. They have topics ranging from sewing to design to embroidery to illustration to so much more, and it's the perfect way to brush up on an old skill or learn a new one. Skillshare offers some amazing sewing and pattern design classes, and one that I'm enjoying right now is Anya Ayung-Chi's Introduction to Draping. This class covers all of the basics of draping, from the materials that you need to actually creating a paper pattern from the draped material. So I've been really enjoying this because I've been wanting to learn a little bit more about draping and making patterns from scratch as you design. Skillshare is specifically curated for learning, meaning that there are no ads and they are always adding new premium classes so you can follow wherever your creativity takes you. Members get unlimited access to thousands of amazing video classes along with hands-on projects and a community of millions that you can learn alongside. Most classes are under 60 minutes, so there's definitely something to fit with every schedule. And when you join, you can even try one of Skillshare's live classes. I think these are so cool. You get to connect in real time with popular teachers and learn alongside other members of the community. And Skillshare has an amazing special offer for you guys today, which I hope you'll take advantage of. The first 1,000 of my subscribers to click the link in the description will get a 1-month free trial of Skillshare so that you can start exploring your creativity today. Thank you again so much to Skillshare for sponsoring this video, and let's get back into the sewing. Now moving on to the skirt, this is a really simple button front gathered skirt. So we have the pocket pieces, the skirt front and back pieces, and then the waistband. So not too much that we're working with here. So the first step to making this skirt is to sew the side seam. So I'm going to start by matching up the sides of the front pieces to the back piece and pinning these together with the right sides together. Then I'll sew my seams with a 5/8 of an inch seam allowance and use the serger to finish the edge. I'm going to press those seams towards the back of the skirt, and then I'm going to prepare the button placket on the front of the skirt. The first thing I want to do here is apply a little bit of fusible interfacing to the front of the skirt, and I've cut this to the width that was marked on the skirt to be folded under as a facing. So I'm just placing this on the fabric with the adhesive side down and pressing it on. Then once I have that applied to both sides of the skirt, I'm going to run this through the serger just to finish off those edges. Now I'm just going to turn these sides towards the inside along the line of the fusible interfacing so that this has a really nice clean edge. Then I'll take this over to the sewing machine and top stitch this in place. Moving on to the pockets next, the first step to preparing the pockets is to hem the top of the pockets. So I'm folding this under 1/4 of an inch and then again 1/2 an inch to create a nice hem at the top of each pocket. Then I'll sew this down with a straight stitch. Once my pockets are hemmed, I'm going to run the 3 remaining edges under the serger so that those don't fray on the inside of the pocket. And then the last step to preparing these pockets is just to turn under each of those serged edges and press these down so that all of the edges are concealed. Here's what the pocket looks like from the inside, and you can see everything looks nice and clean. So now I'm ready to go ahead and sew my pockets to the skirt. So I'm just going to mark where it's marked on the pattern to attach the pockets, and then I'm going to pin these in place and sew them down with a straight stitch. I'm just going to sew around all 3 sides, leaving the top open so that it creates this nice little patch pocket. To get a really sharp corner, whenever I get to the corner on something like this, I will lower my needle to the lowest position and then raise the presser foot and rotate the project. So you can see I'm moving the entire skirt here. That way when I put the presser foot back down, I've turned a really sharp corner and I can move on just sewing in a straight line. And with the pockets attached, I'm ready to go ahead and add gathering stitches to the top of the skirt. So I'm setting my sewing machine up to run some gathering threads, and then I'm going to run 2 rows of gathering stitches all across the top of the skirt. Moving on to the waistband now, I decided to apply a little bit of fusible interfacing to this waistband as well. I just thought it would give it a little bit more of a consistent look with the interfacing on the front of the skirt. So I'm going to go ahead and apply that, and then I'm ready to attach my waistband to the skirt. I'm going to pull up my gathering threads, adjusting them to fit to the waistband, and then I will pin the waistband to the skirt with the right sides together and sew this down with a 5/8 of an inch seam allowance. Next, I'm going to fold up and press the raw edge of the waistband as if I'm hemming it. I'm folding this up around 1/2 of an inch and pressing it in place. Next, I'm going to fold the waistband over on itself and pin the short ends together. Then I'll sew these down with a straight stitch, making sure to backstitch really securely. Then when we turn the waistband right side out, this will leave the corners looking really nice and crisp. Now, one thing that I did neglect to mention before is that when I was adjusting my gathers to fit to the waistband, I made sure the waistband extended just a little bit over the edge so that I could sew the seam. So now I'm just going to trim away this little bit of fabric here at the corner, making sure not to cut my stitching, and then I can turn the waistband right side out, and you can see this looks really nice and neat. I'm just going to use my scissors to help get a little bit of a sharper point here. Then I'm going to press the waistband down so that it is folded in half, and that folded edge on the back covers all of our gathering, and that's all encased inside the waistband. Then I'll take this over to the sewing machine and top stitch it down. The next step is to make all of the buttonholes, so I went ahead and marked the buttonholes and took this over to my sewing machine to sew them in place. I got out my sewing machine instruction manual recently to try and figure out how they intend for you to make buttonholes on one of these older sewing machines, and I think I finally figured it out. I've used zigzag stitches in different size combinations, and this is how it looks. I think it looks really good. So now I'm just going to sew on all of my buttons. I'm using these little shell buttons. I had a lot of these in my stash, and I also had some vintage larger ones that I had recycled from a thrift flip project. So I used that larger one on the shorts, so everything coordinated. And I think these look really pretty with the linen fabric. I like the blend of natural elements. So now the last step was just to hem the skirt. So I went and tried it on and then ran the hem under my serger and turned this under to create a narrow hem, which I sewed down with a straight stitch. And with the skirt done, I was ready to move on to the last project, the little strappy top. Here are the pieces for the top. I have the front and back pieces, which I also cut a lining for. Then I have the strap pieces and the ruffle pieces, so pretty minimal in terms of the number of pattern pieces here. To save on fabric, I cut my back piece as 2 pieces instead of cutting it on the folds. The first thing I'm going to do is just sew up the center back seam on the back pieces. This top has a lot of darts, so the next thing I'm going to do is transfer all of the markings for the darts to the front and back pieces and pin these together and sew all of the darts on the sewing machine. With the darts stitched in place, I've given everything a quick press, and then I can go ahead and sew the side seams. So I'm placing the front pieces against the back piece with the right sides together and pinning along the side seam. Then I'll sew this down with a 5/8 of an inch seam allowance, but because I'm lining this bodice, I don't have to do any serging on it. I'm going to press all of these seams open and then repeat all of these steps on the lining. To make the straps, I'm going to start by folding the straps in half with the wrong sides together and pressing these flat. Then I'm going to fold under each of these raw edges so that they meet in the middle of the strap and press everything down so that all of the raw edges are encased inside and it creates this nice narrow strap. To make the ruffle, I'm going to start by using my serger to finish 3 of the raw edges, the 2 short edges and 1 of the long edges on the ruffle piece. Then I'm going to turn under all of the serged edges to hem them and top stitch them in place. Next, I'm going to run 2 rows of gathering stitches along the top of the ruffle so that we can ruffle it up, and then I'm ready to attach the ruffle to the strap. I'm going to adjust my gathering threads so that the ruffle fits to the strap. I want to have a little bit of the strap extending on either side to give me room to attach it to the bodice without catching any of the ruffle in the actual top. I'm just going to sandwich the ruffle between the folded edges of the strap, and then I will top stitch all of this in place. So now I'm ready to assemble everything. So I'm going to start by pinning the straps to the top as indicated on the pattern. All of this is marked, so I'm just following those markings here and pinning these together with the right sides together. Then I'm just going to pin my lining to the top neckline and armholes of the top with the right sides together, matching up all of those side seams that we sewed earlier. I'm just going to stitch this down with a straight stitch, making sure to only catch that little edge of the strap so that it looks really good when it's turned to the right side. Now, once I finished sewing this seam, I did go ahead and do a little bit of understitching on the neckline, and then I went ahead and folded the top so that the front edges were together and sewed up those front edges as well. I was really nervous turning this towards the right side, but everything looked really good. Here is how it looks once I had given it a press. Now, when I tried this on, I decided that it was really too long for me. I didn't like how far down it went, and I decided I wanted to make it a little bit shorter. So I went ahead and trimmed a little bit of the length away here. Then to hem the bottom edge, I just folded under the right side a little bit and pressed it down, and then turned this towards the inside and folded the lining over that outside hem so that everything looks really, really clean. Then I took this over to the sewing machine and top stitched across the whole thing. So then the last step, you know the drill, marking the buttonholes, making the buttonholes, and sewing on the buttons. And once I had finished that, this project was done. I had such a great time working with these vintage patterns, and I really love the finished sets. I'm especially loving the shorts and top combo, but I also love how flowy and lightweight this linen skirt is, and the pockets are just so, so good. So I'm really excited to have these pieces in my summer wardrobe, both to wear together and to style separately. They're super comfortable, and I think they'll be perfect for the warm weather. I am so happy with how all three of these pieces turned out. It was so fun to work with the vintage pattern, and I'm really excited to start styling these for the summer months. I love that they can all be worn together or mixed and matched into my wardrobe. I feel like these are really going to help to stretch my summer wardrobe, and I really hope you guys enjoyed watching the process. Let me know what you thought of having three pieces in one video like this. I thought it was kind of fun to do something different, so I hope you enjoyed it as well. And if you're new to my channel and haven't subscribed yet, I would love it if you would go ahead and do that by clicking the red button down below to stay tuned for future videos. And if you'd like to keep up with me outside of YouTube, TikTok and Instagram are my two favorite social medias, so both of those will be linked down below. Thank you guys so much for watching this video today, and thank you again to Skillshare for sponsoring today's video. Don't forget to go click the link down below to get your 1 month free trial of Skillshare. I hope you guys will enjoy it as much as I have. Thank you again so much for watching this video, and I will talk to you in the next one. Bye!